Bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout. Throw your hands up and shout. Throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now.
Trying the turn chair thing, huh? With the blood flowing here, the blood pumping. All right, time to talk Buffalo Bills football. We do it every single week with our Buffalo Bills Insider. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Bayberry Automotive, integrity in everything. And it is a glorious week for our friend Anthony Prohaska from Cover One and the Buffalo Bills, because that was quite the show they put on Sunday night. So it must be all smiles around the Prohaska house. How are you, Anthony?
I'm good. Thank you for having me again. This has been fun. And yeah, it was crazy game. Happy to be 1-0. A lot of things that the Bills have to clean up and fix, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point today. But yeah, better be 1-0 than 0-1. And I respect Paul for arms crossed, turning around, fandom above everything else for Bills Jets week. I respect it and I appreciate it.
It is Bills Jets week, and we'll get into it. But we can't until we discuss a little bit about this comeback by the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen essentially putting on his cape and getting this team going in the fourth quarter. 251 yards passing in the fourth quarter alone. That's better than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL had in the entire game that they played in. What happened here? How did the Buffalo Bills find the magic to get the job done?
You credit the Bills, and we'll obviously talk about that, but I think it starts with something that, and I know Bills fans probably don't like to hear this, or maybe they do, and they revel in it. But I think it starts with a little something like we talked about it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about like ranking the AFC, and at the end of one of the episodes, we talked about like Baltimore's tendency to shoot themselves in the foot and finding ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And the Derrick Henry fumble, they start to change their coverages a little bit. You also get some bad luck with, the fourth down Josh Allen throw that gets tipped by Knox, and then it ends up in Keon Coleman's hands. So there were some fortuitous bounces. Yeah, there were some fortuitous bounces that went their way, in addition to the Ravens kind of hurting themselves. But I really think the Bills had a game plan that started out, especially from the offensive side of the ball, mixing up, even off the first drive, various personnel groupings, various formations, like kind of poking and prodding and testing the waters a little bit for Baltimore and kind of seeing what they were going to get. And then whether coincidentally or not, once they came out the gate at halftime, it was like, okay, we have enough sample size. We have enough data. Let's start to kind of open things up a bit. And then that coupled with how the game flow was going. And I think they just kind of, not necessarily threw caution to the wind, but decided like, hey, we just got to start going for it. And, there's no risk at this point with how much we're down, and everything just kind of snowballed and coalesced into one. And we got a ridiculous comeback and an absolutely gut-wrenching loss for the Ravens.
Yeah, it sure was. All right, Devo. Boop, 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 boop.
No, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay, go on.
I got to go down the Matt Prater road. I mean, this guy, Tyler Bass, as we know, has been banged up pretty much all camp. We saw him out there when we were at St. John Fisher.
Helvick area.
Yes. They're trying to get him right. But in the meantime, they need a kicker. And they go out and get Prater literally off the car parking lot, so to speak. And he comes in there, and obviously it may not have been the longest kick in the world, but Buffalo Bills fans, I know, appreciate kicks being made in critical moments.
Yeah, nice reference. They absolutely do. And it came close to being blocked. Deion Walker is the protector from the camera angle side. He's on the left, but he's to Matt Prater's right. He takes the outside man and leaves Kyle Hamilton on the inside free. And Kyle Hamilton comes very close to blocking that kick. And I know we're not really in the drought era anymore, but man, that would have been such a Billsy kind of loss to come back and then have a kick blocked at the end. Like, just would have been so on brand for so many of the years. But yeah, that almost screws it up. But Prater makes the kick that he had to make, wasn't called upon too much, especially with all the 2-point conversion attempts for the Bills. But yeah, it just feels weird to kind of have him on the team. Like, I feel like he's like a ghost of fantasy football teams past. I remember all those years of being like, oh man, I want Prater. Like, he was just such a good kicker. And especially the time to Denver, the thin air, you could boot like those 60 yarders that, depending on your fantasy league, would give you like 15 points and then make everyone hate you because you won from a kicker. But yeah, clutch moment, showed up, made the kick, did what he needed to. And they're going to need him for a little bit with Bass being on the IR.
Well, actually, let's carry over on what Lerch just said. So, okay, have a kicker that has to red eye on a Thursday to come on over here at the end of last week. Then you add a new punter this week too. So the entire special teams gets the Control-Alt-Delete treatment for Buffalo. What are expectations here with so much new and so much different? That could be a critical factor in this Jets-Bills game.
I think it's a really fair question to ask. Like, I trust in Coach Tabor, who's a good special teams coach, and he even mentioned it with Robbins, I think back during camp or the preseason, saying that, like, you know, he still has to compete, even though it essentially like looked like it was his job, and they didn't like some things with him, and so he's gone. You get a new punter in the mix, and I think you can make the case either way. You could sit and say, oh, you know, you'll expect more consistency or better things because maybe they got rid of some things they didn't like, and Coach Tabor brings in somebody that he does want. You kind of hope for some consistency, but you could also play devil's advocate and look at it on the other side of the coin and say, you know, exactly to your point, Paul, like, you've got another new special teams person in the house, and you have no known quantity for him on your roster at this point. So I think you can make a case either way, but, you know, I trust in Coach Tabor right now at this point, just adding up the breadcrumbs of what he said all off season, and hopefully special teams don't come to bite him in the butt this week or any week.
Yeah. All right. It is Jets week. Give us, Anthony, this is something we've kind of been checking in on week to week, the state of the secondary of the Buffalo Bills heading into this game against the Jets.
I think the secondary is still kind of status quo as what it was in week one. You know, they ended up trotting out Dorian Strong at corner 2. I don't think he played bad. I don't think he played necessarily as good as, like, I saw some people going out and being like, oh, he gave up 0 receptions on this. He was like, he wasn't really targeted. And, like, I hate using receptions as a measure for how good a corner is, because that, or targets especially as well, because it's like, oh, he wasn't even targeted, he gave up no catches. Well, that doesn't take into account, like, what about the reps where he gets burned completely, but pressure forces the quarterback to go to the other side and somebody doesn't, you know, get the chance to go over there. Strong got burned vertical by Rashad Bateman on one route. Lamar just wasn't able to get it to him. Got lost a bit in some man coverage on Zay Flowers. Got his eyes caught in the backfield, bit on the play action. That was one, if anyone watching remembers, a little, you know, underneath shallow drag to Zay Flowers, catches it miles of space and takes off for like a 30, 40-yard gain. But overall, I thought, you know, Strong was fine as a rookie. Had a really nice rundown of Derrick Henry, chopped down the stiff arm attempt and brought him down on one of Henry's big runs, which he had several. Cole Bishop got dribbled off the ground by Derrick Henry on a touchdown. Taylor Rapp, rough on the, you know, the touchdown in the fourth quarter that I think gave them 40 points or whatever. There were so many points scored, I lost track. Rapp comes up, doesn't take a great angle, doesn't have the athleticism and the foot speed to make up. If he doesn't take a good angle, Henry just burns him, looks terrible. But overall, I think it was kind of status quo. You're starting a young guy there at corner. You hope he continues to get time on task. You're also starting a young guy in Cole Bishop, even though he's in year 2, doesn't have a ton of time on task because of injuries last year and how things played out. So you're just looking for little bits of improvement every week. And then you also saw some of the limitations for Taylor Rapp, which I also think is, you know, par for the course. And then you saw Christian Bedford do some really good things because he's a really good corner, and that's also par for the course.
Well, let's get a state of the AFC East. The unique thing for Buffalo, and they're in this position a lot, they're in primetime football. So Bills fans get to kick up their feet and watch the rest of football on the day. I'm sure they love how it happened. Bills 1-0, everyone else in the division 0-1. What's the state of the AFC East? New England loses to Vegas at home. Miami gets their barn doors blown off in Indianapolis. Yeah. And then the Jets get absolutely screw jabbed by the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, and they go to 0-1. So what do you think of the rest of the division after the first week of the season?
Yeah, it was an interesting week for the AFC East. I thought Vegas and the Pats at that 1:00 game was one of the games I wanted to see most. Just kind of, you know, what would Vrabel do with the Patriots in year 1? What does year 2 Drake May look like? All the changes they had defensively. I'm also, you know, really interested in the Raiders this year with the overhaul and Geno and Carroll and Chip Kelly coming through and Genty and all the pieces they have there. Pats lose, a close one. Didn't look bad. Didn't look great. Dolphins, to your point, just a complete mess on both sides of the ball. Tua, for as much as Tua has, you know, been ripped apart by fans of every fan base minus the Dolphins, even Dolphins fans at times when he's struggling. When healthy, he's been good with McDaniel. Like, and everyone's, oh, well, if you get him off his first read or if you make him scramble, and it's like, cool, nobody can. Like, he hits windows, the timing, the anticipation, him and McDaniel. The run game is better than it gets credit for. And the run game was able to do some stuff. But man, yeah, Tua looked rough. The offense looked rough. Tyreek Hill is pissed on the sideline and he's upset, which I just think is fantastic because he's a less than ideal human. And then we get to the Jets, and that was a crazy game, back and forth. I actually found myself rooting even for the Jets a little bit just because I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers guy, and I'm also not a big Jalen Ramsey guy. But then just Ramsey sticks Garrett Wilson to end that game. He's talking, he's yapping. Like, that was just such a good game. I started to dive into the tape a little bit last night. I'll be finishing up that today. But yeah, just it's nice that everyone else is 0-1 and the Bills are 1-0, but it could have gone a very much different way for the Jets, even the Pats a little bit. But the Dolphins had no shot. They were dead in the water. No pun intended.
Well, always in these early season games, names pop up of players that we're not expecting. And the Bills have a pretty stout tight end room, but who the heck is this guy? That was a rather big 29-yard catch for this guy. Talk about it.
Yeah, he triple caught it. Like, he gets it the first time in his chest, bobbles it. It goes up in the air. He tries to underhand scoop it with his hands, still doesn't get it, and then catches it again, kind of by his face mask with, corner Nate Wiggins. Oh, I'm confusing names nonstop this year. Even with Hawes, I call Hawes Spencer Hawes, the former NBA player. It's just so frustrating for me.
Yeah. Jackson Hawes, for those who don't know, who's on the screen.
Right. Yeah. Jackson Hawes on the screen here. Yeah, big catch late in the game, which is nice to see. I think the bigger storyline for him was how much of a people mover he was in the run game. Early on, they run a mid-zone run to the left, and James Cook cuts it all the way back to this huge alley because Jackson Hawes takes 315-pound Broderick Washington and just gets his hand right on his hip and into the small of his back and just washes him down completely. Then a couple plays later, he takes nickel corner Marlon Humphrey and just completely knocks him out of the box, takes him out of the screen. He's such a people mover in the run game and so effective against a multitude of body types as a run blocker. And that's where it starts. And if you can just get average or competent tight end play or pass catching play from him at that position, he really becomes something to monitor because he is a true dual threat then potentially, because you put him on the field and he's a legitimate run blocker in a multitude of roles, alignments, fashions, assignments, responsibilities, however you want to label it. But if he can also be viable in the pass game, now it's not a complete tell. Now it's not a complete tendency giveaway. He had some nice plays in camp. I know he's a late round pick, but I'm super excited to see him with this team. I'm also a run the ball kind of guy. So if you have another piece that can add to the run pass conflict and, limit the keys and tells of you being able to access as much of the menu without changing the page, I love that. And yeah, he had a big moment in the pass catching game, but tons of great run block reps for him.
From the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech, the old ACC there.
Yes.
Showing up here on a Sunday in the NFL. Go ahead, Boy Green.
Yeah, you know who else is I'm a run guy. Aaron Glenn is a run guy, Anthony Prohaska. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, I want to ask you this. Is it more of a benefit or a detriment that you guys happen to play Baltimore week 1 and now you play the Jets? Now, Justin Fields is not Lamar Jackson. Breece Hall is not Derrick Henry, but the style of what they want to do, Ted and Wynn did a great piece on The Athletic talking about this, that the Jets are Ravens light, that what they're trying to do is very Raven similar. So in one hand, right, the Bills are facing something that they sort of just game plan for. So maybe some of that can carry over. But on the other hand, there a lot of weaknesses potentially are shown by the Bills that the Jets are sweet. Those are a lot of things we're going to do. So again, benefit or detriment for Bills just playing the Ravens now, playing the Jets in that same way?
I think it's good for the Bills that they got gouged by the Ravens and now get another team that wants to run the ball, that has a good athletic quarterback, that has a physical offensive line. Membao looked sweet. That was even in week 1 without Elijah Vera Tucker, who I loved coming out of USC, and dude just keeps getting hurt every year. It sucks. But you got, it really is a shame. But you got Tippmann who can people move. Membao, again, looked really good. And that's just me seeing in the tape a little bit there. I think it's good that you get the opportunity to kind of get back up on the horse if you're the Bills defense. And it's no rest for the weary. Hey, we got gouged. We weren't sound in our run fits. We did some things fun schematically against the run and had some stops, but obviously we got gashed a bunch. Let's get the opportunity to kind of course correct right away and fix that. Now, devil's advocate to that is, are you going to be able to correct it? The Jets do have a physical and good offensive line. They do. And then I know your point, Fields isn't Lamar. Brees and Henry. They're both still pretty sweet. Like, they're both extremely athletic, extremely electric. I like how the Jets want to attack. I think the only kind of difference is, if you're looking at Baltimore's weapons, I think everything on the outside provides more of a threat than what the Jets have, even though, again, I am a Garrett Wilson wide receiver 1 truther. I think he is a legitimate threat. Exactly. Throw up that one there, but very bloodline-esque. I think it's a good test, good opportunity to get back on the horse. I think the Bills are going to struggle a bit to stop the run. The only opportunity is because you may not have as many threats on the outside, you can crowd the box a little bit more, play more of the math and the numbers game without necessarily being worried too much on the outside there. But Garrett Wilson still has the opportunity to beat Benford or beat whatever corner he's matched up against. So that'll be a good battle to see. But I expect the Jets to move the ball on the ground, but the Bills to get their fair share as well.
Talking with Anthony Prohaska, our Bills insider, as we break down the Bills. We do this every single week. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Bayberry Automotive, where it is integrity in everything. Let's just take 30 seconds to learn a little bit more about our friends in Bayberry.
Integrity is a word that some people just throw around in life. But at Bayberry Automotive, integrity is everything. Integrity of their mechanics, who are all experienced and certified. Integrity in the work they perform, with nothing but 5-star reviews from satisfied customers on Google. Integrity that goes along with family. A family-run business that treats you like one of their own. Integrity in everything. Bayberry Automotive. BayberryAutomotive.com.
Located on Route 57 across from Bayberry Plaza, the premier choice for auto repair in Liverpool.
Well, Anthony, we talked about, the Jets run game. I agree with you. It looked formidable. Brees Hall looked like he had a little bit of pep in his step. Meanwhile, on the Bills side of things, it was a very modest day, particularly for James Cook, who only averaged, I think, 3.4 yards per carry. So is this the formula, or what is the formula, maybe is the question, for the Bills against the Jets to kind of, grab this one by the harnesses if they're going to?
Yeah, I think everything every week for the Bills is going to start with establishing the run, or trying to, at least. And they had some success, throughout the game, more early on. Cook was ripping off some 6-yard, 7-yard, 10+ yard runs. But I think a lot of it too was, as the game script went away, they had to go away from the run. So if they were able to keep plugging at it, who knows kind of what would happen. But I think really for that, you have to tip your cap a lot to Baltimore. Nnamdi Madubuike had a great game as a rusher, but also just as a run defender. Travis Jones was a monster inside, number 98 for Baltimore. There were a couple reps where him and Madubuike were just like chucking, and the Bills have a good offensive line as well, but they're chucking Connor McGovern. They're chucking David Edwards, driving guys into the backfield, just displacing them and creating havoc. Bad news for the Bills is the Jets have a guy on the interior in Quinnen Williams who is all-pro caliber, who even when the Bills have run roughshod through the Jets the past couple of years, which hasn't really happened a lot because the Jets, even when the Bills are beating the Jets, it's still a close game or a problem. Quinnen Williams has always been a problem inside for the Bills, as he is for most teams. He's one of the best defensive tackles in all of football. They have struggled with him consistently. I'm interested to see kind of what they do for him. I think everything starts with, how do you mitigate his impact? Can you move him? What type of schemes do you go from there with that as your starting point? You do have to start with the run. This is not a team that is built to go spread and pass the ball. I know how it ended up against Baltimore, but they're not built to go 35, 40 attempts, living through the air, spreading it out. This is a team that wants to use condensed formations, multiple personnel groupings, run the ball, get at you that way, and then pass 20 to 25, more like 25 to 30 times a game and live off the run. But it's going to be a challenge with how the Jets play defense, how they want to play defense, and some of the dudes they have really on the defensive line. And then Quincy Williams at the second level, is just a heat-seeking missile, especially against the run. It's going to be a challenge, but they're going to have to try and start with running the ball, and I think they will.
All right, let's go to a guy up front. He was the player of the game, I would think, for Buffalo, is Ed Oliver. Now, is he this Superman that's taking this massive leap? Obviously, he had the strip on Derrick Henry and made a bunch of other plays for the Buffalo Bills. Is he that good? Is he going to come back down to earth in week 2? What's the temperature check on Ed Oliver as we look at some of the best defensive tackles in football?
I think it's very much wait and see. This game, the national stage and the comeback, I think, buoyed him a bit more. And things are relative and, I guess somewhat subjective and arbitrary to what I'm about to say, but he's had games like this where he's had sacks and pressures and run stops and has just been a menace. And then he's also had games right after that where you're like, did Ed Oliver play today? And then you're like, oh, he did, because he's a ghost out there. It's happened in the regular season. It's happened in the playoffs. It happens for a game at a time, 2, 3, 4 games at a time. He's very streaky and inconsistent. But to your point, when you get those highs, they're extremely impressive. And he looks like every bit of a top 10 pick like he was. And then he just kind of disappears for a little bit. So I do think it's very much wait and see. He's got the capability. He's got the ceiling. He's got the capacity. It's just whether or not he can be that continuously effective. Or, again, he had a crazy good game. I'm not expecting him to do that every week. But, if he was a 9 or 10 out of 10 that week against Baltimore, don't be a 1 or a 2 this week. Can you be a 7? Can you be an 8? Can you consistently be a 7 to a 10 instead of going from a 10 to a 1, a 9 to a 3, and having that roller coastery ebb and flow type of aspect to him?
Talking with Anthony Prohaska, our Bills insider. Don't forget to like our video, hit the old thumbs up, and subscribe at MC Show Digital on our YouTube channel as we continue to grow our little community. Anthony, the Jets do present a new problem. Boy, Green thinks it's a franchise problem. It's a I'm going to the Super Bowl problem. I'll temper it a little bit by saying he looked pretty good in game 1, and that's Justin Fields. And one of the issues you have to deal with Fields are the feet, are the legs. So what do the Bills employ here? Is it the spy technique? How do you keep this guy contained? Because if he gets loose, he could run for 150 yards on you.
Yeah, I think it starts with trying to make him a silo player and eliminating the run game from him, whether it's by design or it's by scrambles. And again, that's easier said than done. I think that's been the book on Fields since he came into the league, and he still finds a way to make plays with his legs. And then especially if Breece starts to get going, then you have to honor Breece and Fields out of the backfield. But I think it starts with having numbers in the box, being able to have a body for every gap, not just have a hat on a hat from if you have 7 blockers, having 7 defenders. No, if you have 7 blockers, you need 8 guys in the box to be able to account for every gap. And then Fields changes the math even further, because if he is a runner, then the running back is a blocker. That's another one in terms of a +1 for the Jets offense from a math perspective and a numbers perspective. And that's not even taking into account what they'll run and the angles and space. But I think it starts with trying to make him beat you through the air and with his arm. If you lose to the Jets because Justin Fields threw for 320 yards or whatever and diced you up, you live with that. You tip your cap. Well done, dude. Like, if he can do that every week, he's going to be a stud. He just hasn't been able to do that consistently. So I think it starts with numbers in the box, really trying to limit him as much as you can, make him beat you through the air. You're going to have to be very sound for any type of run action. Guys on the backside of those runs cannot just come crashing down. You have to honor the fact that he might boot out. You have to honor the fact that he may keep, if it's just the zone read stuff or it's RPO type aspects or runs with pass tags. You have to be cognizant of his legs at all times. And I think you can do that in a multitude of ways. They can do it with their odd mirror packages on passing downs where they rush 3 and have that aggressive spy, try to get Fields off the spot, and then really attack from an angles perspective while hopefully playing man coverage behind it. But yeah, I think it really just starts with numbers and not allowing him, giving him no space, no area. Anytime he has the opportunity to be like run or pass, you have to make him pick pass. And then if he beats you with his arm, you tip your cap.
The Jets have a lot of people that wear capes on the team. Manchild just selected one of them in Justin Fields. Another one is Quinnen Williams. But, a Batman is nothing without his Robin. And I just want you to look at this, Anthony Prohaska. You look at this screen, and you see Harrison Phillips, your former Buffalo Bill, now down in the green and white, baby. And you tell me how this makes you feel.
I don't love it. Harrison was awesome when he was here. He got paid to go to Minnesota. We talked about him when he got traded. I was not thrilled to see him with the Jets. I'm interested to see how good he looked on the tape once I finished this Jets-Steelers game. But just off of the immediate look at it, apologies for the sirens in the background. I think
I was starting to look out my windows.
No, I was just about to say, is that because the Jets stole Harrison Phillips for a bag of Doritos from the Vikings?
That's the joke I was going to make, is that everybody's throwing up the sirens because they don't like what's on the screen. He's to your point, like, and the lead in, like, having him as the Robin, like having him as the 2 to Quinnen Williams, that's just really quality. Like, I don't think he's ever been a top tier, like 1 type of defensive tackle, but he's been a low to mid tier 2 at times, at worst, a high end 3. He's a really good character dude, a really good rotational body to have. And him next to Quinnen is definitely a formidable force, especially with how good Quinnen is, which is all pro kind of good.
And
So I hate
quick
this.
question, quick follow up on that, because I'm doing a bunch of Jets Bills interviews naturally this week with a bunch of people, and Kevin Masseri, he brought up that like Harrison Phillips, when he was on the Vikings, knew certain offensive line calls, so he was able to cause a fumble in that crazy ass Bills Vikings game from a couple of years ago. Is any of the calls still the same? I'd love to share any of that with old Harrison before this Jets Bills game this week.
It's possible. But I think now as we've started to kind of move further and farther away from the offense there, and Brady has taken hold more, I think we've kind of started to move a bit. Yeah, I remember that. I think someone posted that maybe even earlier this month or at the end of August. Someone put that out on Twitter and with that clip of, that's why he was able to cause that fumble with the Bills in the shadow of their own goal line, because he knew the cadence, he knew the snap count. But I think we're a bit a ways away from that Bills team and that offense and how things ran. So I would assume they've got some different calls and cadences, but if there's things that Josh still likes that he liked back then and he still uses, there's an opportunity for for Harrison Phillips to definitely pick up on that.
Oh man, I was hoping for some swipe or no swiping action, but I guess not.
You never know. It's possible. It's possible. But that game was back in 2022, and now this is, Brady, different offense, different type of style.
No Mitch Morse anymore, right? Yeah.
No Mitch Morse. You've got a different kind of system, but again, if it's still Josh Allen, so guys like what they like. Aaron Rodgers has had the same cadence for like 15 years and type of deals. But maybe also with that, maybe it's a little bit of the Bills too, being like, oh, we know what you think you know, so now we're gonna try and fit that. So maybe we know what you know that you think we think that you know. So we'll see. A little bit of gamesmanship. I like it.
Anthony, I'd wish you luck, but I don't think you're going to need it this weekend.
Don't jinx that. Don't jinx that. I am far too superstitious for that.
Anthony, give us a prediction. Blowout Bills win? Come on, let me hear it. Come on,
no prediction.
I'm far
too superstitious for that. Absolutely.
You know that.
Absolutely not.
I don't
no way, shape, or
form.
No way, shape, or form. I think it'll be a fun game.
I think one of the things about this one from the Jets side of things is you don't want to lose 2 at home to start the season. And, they could have had that one against the Steelers, and they didn't get it. So how do you make up for it? And logic says, or nature says that the Bills, coming off that incredible high of looking like they were not going to win and then winning, and all of that happening at home in front of a fairly raucous crowd, at least those that hung around. We didn't get to talk about that.
Crazy.
That there has to be a letdown from that. There has to be some form of letdown. Now, does that letdown result in them not being up to the task here against the Jets? I'm not so sure that it will be. I hate the term trap game. We used to talk about it all the time, and Paul and I would get in arguments. So be quiet. I don't want to hear that dopey thing. You're either ready to play or you're not ready to play. It's just that simple. Buffalo has a lot of things to work on, just like the Jets do at this time of the season. Every football team has a lot to work on, right? So, but in terms of what you put on the field, especially that guy under center, I'd have a lot less worries week to week. Take it from the Giant fan, okay? We can't even block the guy, and we don't have anybody yet under center of note. So, both of you guys are in better shape, but Anthony, you might be in the best shape of the three of us, I think.
Yeah, which is I too superstitious to make a comment. I appreciate the kind words for the Bills team. I refuse to acknowledge those kind words officially, but I hear them and I appreciate them. And I do think it'll be a fun game, just with where the Bills' struggles lie defensively, where the Jets' strengths are offensively, and then you go from there. And then they're also going to play a bunch of man coverage defensively if you are the Jets, knowing Sauce, and there's even more so Aaron Glenn with what he did in Detroit and what he wants to do here. The Bills saw the most man coverage, I believe, in the league last year. They saw the most single high coverage last year in the league. I know, Brandon Stevens isn't DJ Reed, and there's some changes out there at that spot, but there is I do think some kind of like strength on strength, weakness on weakness, who can mitigate each other's strengths, who can, expand upon or magnify whose weaknesses and where and how much. And I do think it'll be a fun game, and we'll see what happens. And I refuse to acknowledge anything else.
All right. He's Anthony Prohaska, Cover One. He's our Bills insider. Again, today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Bayberry Automotive. Anthony, thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and enjoy your weekends, and Godspeed.